Hello and welcome to Into the Woods with Holly Wharton. This podcast is all about our journey into the woods of ourselves, getting to know who we are, where we are, and where we're going in life so that we can create the life that we want to live. It's about deepening your connection with yourself, taking inspired action, and really trusting yourself and your intuition. It's also about mindset. Our beliefs are such an important part of this journey. And there are so many ways for us to change our mindset so that we can more easily live a life of expansive joy. This podcast is also about going literally into the woods and spending time in nature, and how that can help us on our own personal journey of self-knowledge. Thank you so much for joining us today. Now let's get into this week's episode. Hello, adventurers, and welcome to the Into the Woods podcast, episode 394. This is your host, Holly Wharton, and I'm back with another exciting guest. Today, I am talking with Suneet Kaur. We're going to be talking about plant spirit healing, something that is very close to my heart. Suneet is someone that I've known for about 10 years now, and I've always had massive respect for her work. She was my teacher for the Plant Spirit Healing Apprenticeship that I completed in 2019, and I really hope to learn from her again in the future. We actually had a chat after we got off the interview and talked about some possibilities for this year and beyond, which I'm super excited about. So in this week's episode, this is more about adventures in consciousness than it is outdoors adventures, but it is talking about plants, so you can do this outdoors as well. So in this week's episode, we talk all about plant spirit healing. What are plant spirits? How can they help us with our healing and personal growth? I think when a lot of people think about healing with plants, they think about herbalism and taking teas and tinctures and things. And that's one really great way of working with plants for healing. Suneet is actually training now to be a medical herbalist. But plant spirits can also help us with our healing and personal growth. And if you've read my book, If Trees Can Talk, you probably have an idea of how trees can help us. But plant spirits can be every bit as powerful as tree spirits. So let me tell you a little bit more about Suneet and who she is. Suneet is a trained and initiated shamanic practitioner. She is also a plant spirit healer, Usui Reiki master teacher, and student medical herbalist. Suneet was born with the psychic abilities to see, hear, know, and feel things beyond our five senses. And she had many psychic experiences from very early childhood. As Suneet got older, she found a deep faith in God and walked with spirit by her side for many years, before life events led to her coming out of the psychic closet. These events opened up a deep desire to help others and to be in service to the divine, God, Great Spirit. This led to her setting up her practice, Divine Souls, in 2013, and she began offering healings and readings. Once she began her practice, Suneet very quickly found herself hurtling down the shamanic path with a very firm boot in her back from spirit. On this path of profound personal healing and rebirth, Suneet fell in love with the plant kingdom. She began studying with different teachers to learn, heal, and explore the wise healing magic of working with plant spirits. Suneet now teaches how to work with plant spirits for personal healing or to become a practitioner. She holds plant spirit ceremonies and initiations for those who would like to explore their own relationship with the plant kingdom. This is the main focus of her work. Suneet is particularly passionate about UK native and non-psychoactive plant spirit medicines as a way to heal and is currently studying to become a medical herbalist. So what are you going to learn in this week's episode? We talk about what are plant spirits. What is plant spirit healing? We discuss the benefit of working with plant spirits in addition to, or rather than, the physical parts of plants. How to connect with plant spirits, there are lots of different ways, and how to deepen your relationship with the plant spirits. Suneet is doing the apprenticeship that I did in 2019. She's now doing that online, and she's doing some other plant spirit initiations online as well. I've just been to her website after we had this conversation. I'm going to sign up for a couple of things because I'm really, really interested in continuing my learning with her and my connection with the plant spirits and having someone to guide me through that, because I'm so used to doing a lot of things on my own, connecting directly with the trees, and it's very, very helpful to have someone guiding you on that journey. So I will be signing up for some Suneet's things this year, and I hope that you do too. If you're even remotely curious about any of this, check out her website and learn more. Hello, Suneet.
Hello.
Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm super excited to talk to you about plant spirit healing.
I am super excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
So can you start out by telling us a little bit about who you are and what you do?
I am a shamanic practitioner first and foremost. And really that's how my journey began. Actually, I think my journey began as a psychic and an intuitive. But when I started to look at my abilities and how to work with them in a more professional way, I found myself on the shamanic path. Then towards the end of my shamanic training, I found myself on the plant spirit path. And really that's been my passion and my go-to for personal healing and for what I offer professionally.
And so how did you get started on the shamanic path? Because I remember when I first met you, you were a psychic and you were doing psychic readings. And then all of a sudden you started walking the shamanic path and doing trainings and birthing your first drums. And how did you get started in that?
That is a good question. For me, it was really a deep call from spirit. You know, it wasn't something I looked for. I didn't really even know what a shaman was or what shamanism is. And when I decided to do this more professionally, actually the first workshop I attended was run by a shaman. At that time, I was like, what is a shaman? What is this thing? And I didn't really think that much of it. And then spirit guided a teacher into my life. And we just did a little bit of an exchange, and when I saw what she did, I was like, I really need to do this. I had no idea at that time of what it meant or what it would mean for me. But I just knew that there was this really profound fascination with it. There was a deep calling to do all of those things, to explore it. But I think mostly the most important thing through the whole thing was actually the level of personal healing that I received from it. Every time I did something, a shamanic healing session or work with different energy realms or birthing a drum, I had such a profound healing process that I just kept thinking, I need to give this to others. Why isn't everyone doing this? Do you know what I mean? It changed my life. It really was a path of rebirth. And although I learned lots of techniques on how to help people and how to be a practitioner, truly I found my own spiritual philosophy. I found my own spiritual path through it. So it was a deep calling. I went through a mentorship really for 3 years, a private one-to-one mentorship. A lot of people train in different ways, and that was my way. Actually, my mentor said to me, you were trained by spirit, but you were mentored by me. And she really kept me safe because it was spirit that kept saying, go and do this, do this, do this. And because I'd already had a relationship with spirit for 10 years plus, it was very, not easy, but I already had a very established connection to spirit to be able to walk that journey in that kind of way. Whereas I think other people who start out who haven't got that established connection may not necessarily be able to move in those ways in a way that is clean and clear.
And how do you think you developed such a strong connection with spirit?
Now I look back and I know it was always there. I have very early childhood memories of seeing things, knowing things. Even this morning, or I think last night, I was thinking about how one of my imaginary friends growing up, I now know was a ghost that lived in the house.
Oh.
So it's like, it was always there. But I think that because of the childhood that I had and the way I was brought up, it was almost like what I was seeing and saying wasn't accepted, or it was always pointing out things people didn't want to look at. So I always got silenced. Also you get older and you don't really think about these things, and almost certain abilities shut down for your own safety. And I traveled at 20, and at 21 I came back and I had, I guess, an awakening. And I then really started to develop my connection with spirit. And I had a really good mentor who was a clairvoyant who really put me on the path of faith in God and kept my connection very clean. And I think what happened is when I decided to work professionally, suddenly my abilities opened up to their fullness. And I was very aware of things that weren't clean and clear. And that's where shamanism came in.
So when you talk about spirit and your relationship with spirit, how do you define spirit? What does that mean to you?
That's a good question. I think originally when I used to talk about spirit, I meant spirit guides and angels, and that was really, and God, or the indescribable one, or however people identify that energy. I really meant that. But when I started to sort of explore the philosophies of shamanism, I recognize it to be a lot more than that. So it's the elementals, the plant spirits, tree spirits, land energies, things that all have a life force or a creative principle behind them. So one of my teachers actually says, she says divine forces. And I think that's really what I mean is the divine forces.
I like that. So what are plant spirits?
So I believe every living thing, every earth matter has a consciousness, and not just a consciousness, but an intelligent consciousness. So when you're working with a plant spirit, it's the consciousness of that plant or tree. And sometimes you can work with the one tree or plant, and sometimes you're working with the oversoul of the tree or plant. So you're working with all the ash trees or all the tulsi plants, the over principle.
So when people talk about like spirit guides or things like that, or animal totems, they're talking about that over spirit or over soul. It's like the raven or the wolf, or I'm trying to kind of figure out how we can explain this to people who might not be familiar with that concept.
Yeah, I guess it also depends how you're working with it. So let's say if you're working with power animals, it is the over principle, it's the oversoul. And usually when you're working more in the spirit realms, it tends to be that. When you're working in energetic realms, so like let's say journeying or meditation, when you're calling those energies in. If you're sitting somewhere in nature and you're by a particular stone and that stone is speaking to you, then you're working with that stone.
Yeah.
When you work with spirit guides, it's usually the singular, but it's usually the singular. So the lower world, the Mother Earth realms tend to be the oversouls. And then as you go higher, you can work with more the individual consciousness of things.
So what is plant spirit healing? How can you work with plant spirits for healing yourself or others?
It's very similar ideas or concepts as things like Reiki or angelic Reiki or even crystal healing, I guess. You're channeling the energy of a specific plant or tree to come into somebody's energy body for healing. And essentially you're, as my teacher says, you're the hollow bone, that plant or tree energy is coming through you. You're the doorway that they can come through to heal that person's energy body.
So you're like the channel for that energy to come and help that person.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what's the benefit of working with plant spirits rather than the physical parts of plants, like leaves and roots and things?
The physical parts of plants are always really good. And there is definitely a lot to be said about that. But in terms of the energetic healing is really when you work in this way, the physical illness is the last manifestation. So the first place it shows up is your energy body. So if you're really working on the energetic level, then you're actually healing things in a much larger framework than the physical level, because you can be healing time, places, and even to some extent other people, just as indirect effect. So I would say that's definitely the biggest reason why.
And how do you communicate with plant spirits? How do you kind of call them in and ask them for their help with healing?
I actually find this part really interesting because, one, I think everybody is different.
Yeah.
So some people can think of that plant and it's there and it's with them and they're just got a knack for it, or there's something there that already resonates strongly with them. Some people are sensitive to it because they're just generally more sensitive to earth energies, and other people need to work for it. I think I needed to work for it. And I find with plants, they really respond well to relationship. They really respond well to reciprocity. And so I guess what I mean is, when you initiate that contact, it's really that initiation is a place of love and it's a building of a relationship. I would say that the most simplest way is to be with that plant or tree in person. that for me is one of the reasons I love the plant kingdom so much, is because it's so real. You know, you can touch and feel and actually first use your five senses. And also underlying all of this is the reality, the scientific reality that we are in constant relationship with plants and trees just simply by breathing. So there is a constant dynamic. There is a constant exchange, both materially but also energetically, that we are in relationship with the plants and trees. And so you think about breathing and you also think about ingestion. You know, we literally are eating these plants and trees. So there's a whole relationship and subtle nuances that are really important here. But I would say the first thing is respect. And the way I do that is through making a little offering, be it a song or my teacher says always as something handmade, a little bead or something handmade. Some people offer food, you know, blessed water, whatever is your offering, because it's a bit like, you know, you don't go to a dinner party without a bottle of wine. You don't go in empty-handed, especially when you're asking for something.
Yes.
And then be aware when you're sitting with that plant or tree, you know, everything that happens is part of that discussion you are having, is part of the inspiration and the insight that you're receiving, whether it's the wind or a bird calling, or all of it is part of you having communication with the tree, because it's really important to know that. And then I think you can slowly move into your other senses. So you've got your five senses in play, and then start to move into, well, what's called the dream of the plant or tree. You know, you move into, well, what images does this bring for me? What feelings, emotions, where does it sit in my body? And, you know, do I hear a song? Do I hear a phrase? All of these things, you slowly build upon them. And depending on your own sensitivity, you will receive something. And then there's the ways that are removed from actually sitting with the plant or tree, which is journeying or meditation or dream work or a tea ceremony. So there's lots of ways to answer your question. There's a lot of ways.
So can you explain for us what is journeying for people that don't know? How could you journey with a plant spirit?
Shamanic journeying is a way of traveling the energy world in a safe and guided manner. It's like lucid dreaming, you know, in that you're very awake, but it can feel like a dream world because things can happen in that realm that don't happen in reality. And so you can meet anything energetically or spiritually in the energy world.
When I did your plant spirit healing apprenticeship, not last year, but the year before, it was so amazing to me how easy it was to get into that realm and to see things and to experience things that, I don't know, it was like this whole new world opened up to me.
It's interesting you say that, because the first time I journeyed, I screamed in my mentor's ear, bring me back the entire time. Like, it was not a natural concept for me. I'm like double Taurus, so I like to be grounded. I like to be in my body. I like to be in control. And actually now, you know, I don't need my drum. I don't need certain things. I can just go if I want. And so I know that there are people who do struggle with journeying, and there's different reasons why. But you're right. It was, once I'd done it once, it was like, oh my God. There's this amazing thing happening right now. And I guess I would just say, you know, journeying requires guidelines. It requires a skill set, and it requires safeness of traveling the energy world. But if you have those in place, it can be incredibly insightful and powerful and profoundly healing.
Yes, absolutely. And so you talked about safeness. What do people need to be aware of, or how can they stay safe when they start working with these spirit realms and plant spirits and other worlds?
That's a good question. And I'm sure safeness is a technical term there as well. And so I think the first thing I say, in general, not even just with regards to journeying, but in general, I always make a very clear intention when I do any energetic work. My intention is to only connect with the energies that serve the divine will. So it's a very clear intention that I'm there for healing. I am there to be in service to the divine will, and I'm only connecting with things from the light. The second thing is that if you don't have any experience journeying, you really should have a guide when you journey. And that guide can be a power animal if you already have a power animal. If you don't, I would ask for an archangel
Mm-hmm.
to guide you. And really, when you're in that journey, to check that it is what it says it is, because,
Mm.
you can have tricky energies. So if it's your power animal, or if it's an archangel, if you want to do a double check, you're double checking from your heart space, because the heart can't lie when it reads vibration. So the heart should, what my teacher says, it should ping.
Mm.
If it thuds, it's not working. If it pings, you're on the money. So I'd say that always go with a guide, and always check with the guide what you're doing. If you're leading your journey and without proper experience, then I would say that you need to just go back and look at why that is.
Mm. And you also mentioned dream work as a way of connecting with plant spirits. How does that work?
That's a really good question. I am really into dreams because I dream a lot and I dream very vividly. But I have to say, I generally don't dream about plants specifically. But I will often have very vivid dreams before I'm doing a ceremony with a plant, or after. Or I know in initiations that I've attended with my teacher, part of the work of initiation is to have a dream, have a significant dream. So for me, my dreams are received from the plant as a way of helping me have insight into something, helping me understand something. I find generally when it comes to sleep and plants, they tend to wake me up than they do help me sleep. They tend to come and wake me in the night, or keep me up night to, talk to me. But I do know, other people have had dreams of walking into fields of their plant and having conversation. Then they go the next day and they find the plants. So,
wow. So would you just set the intention and ask the plant spirit, would you please kind of come into my dreams and teach me, or help me know what I need to know? Or
yeah, exactly that. And actually mugwort is a really good plant for working with dreams. The other day we were having a smudge, and I had this little nudge. I had a little bit of mugwort that we could use, and I decided to use it, and I had it rolled up because you can smoke mugwort. And I just used it for smudging rather than anything else. And I had the most vivid dreams.
wow.
And I woke up in the morning, I was like, oh my God, all night. They kept me awake all night because they were so vivid. And so mugwort is a really good dreaming plant. If you do want to work with dreams, I would suggest definitely working with mugwort, especially lucid dreaming.
Yeah, that's something I've never been able to achieve. And I feel such a connection to mugwort, but I haven't worked with her as much as I'd like to. So I really think that's a plant that I need to, or want to, revisit.
Yeah, mugwort does so much. It's one of those plants you can keep going back to and receiving and working with in different ways. It really does so much.
And what about tea ceremony? You mentioned that as another way of connecting with plant spirits.
At the moment I'm studying to become a medical herbalist, and I have to do a research project. And they introduced this thing called tea tasting, which was originally introduced by this guy called Christopher Headley, who's passed away now. And he used to teach at the Scottish School of Herbal Medicine, and he was very much involved with the plant spirit world. And he introduced this concept of tea tasting. And so I have to do a research project where there's 20 herbs, and I can't learn from a book. I just can't do it to myself. So I've started to do these tea tastings every week. And I was a bit unsure, because normally the way I work with plants is I get really involved in ceremony. It's a whole long, involved ceremonial process. So to do a little tea tasting was kind of a bit new to me, but actually it's been really amazing. And it really just involves making the tea of your plant. Obviously, you should always check it, can drink it and ingest it. For me, it is ceremony. There's a whole thing that for it, which is you set the time, you set the day, you make the intention that you want to connect with the spirit of that plant. And then when that day of time comes, you're making that tea with conscious awareness. It's not just a automatic process. You're being aware of the whole intuitive feeling of making that tea, and how long you're brewing it and how much you're putting in. And then you're ingesting that tea again with a conscious awareness. You're being aware of what comes up, where it sits, what images comes up. It's really good if you haven't met the plant to see a picture of it before. You don't have to, but it helps. And also really important to maybe smell the tea and sit with it before you drink, and maybe even say a little prayer or blessing before you drink as well. for that tea and what you want to connect to. And it's been quite an amazing process. And I actually, last week, we worked with agrimony. I had this really vivid dream before I woke up that was really related to agrimony. And then this week we worked with red clover, and it's really such a special thing. And the tea ceremonies, I would say, are a bit more like an introduction. It's like a meet and greet, you know, like a shake a handshake of just getting to know you. Whereas as you move to the longer and deeper ceremonial processes, then you're really moving towards what my teacher says to me is where you have the medicine living in you. You're carrying that plant spirit inside of you all of the time. Whereas the tea ceremonies are a bit like, hi, how are you?
Let's get to know each other.
Yeah, exactly. It's a handshake.
So how do you work with other people to help them connect with plant spirits?
For me, my priority really is to teach, because one of the kind of tenets, I guess, of shamanism is direct experience. And I'm a really big believer of that, because it's hard to believe, but I can actually be quite a big skeptic about things. But once I've experienced, I'm the 100% believer. And all of my work with plant spirits has been, the whole reason I'm so passionate about it has been because of direct experience. So for me, that is the most important thing, is to provide a space where people can come and just to facilitate a space where people can have that direct experience, not just to meet and greet, but actually really receive healing from meeting and working with plant spirits. So that's really my main thing that I like to do. And so I run lots of little small ceremonies. Then I also I run an apprenticeship, which you were on.
Yes.
That is about teaching people how to work with, really taking it to the next level of, okay, this, you know, I've worked with plant spirit, but how do I really fall in love with the kingdom, and how am I in constant relationship with this kingdom, and how can I bring that for other people? It's for those people who feel called to be in service in some way, and really want to help other people as well. And also for people who really feel deeply called to working with native and non-psychoactive plant spirit. That's just another area I'm passionate about. So I think that's definitely another one. And as I said, I'm studying to become a medical herbalist. That was very much guided by dandelion, and so that I can start to bring that medicine for people physically as well.
And why do you find that other people are drawn to working with plant spirits? Like, why do people come to you? What do they think they're going to get out of it?
I don't think anybody knows what they're going to get out of it. I don't think people really know why they're drawn to me, but every time someone comes and says, oh, I don't know why, I just booked a session, I always go, it's because you can feel the call of the plants.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily me they're drawn to, it's what I'm carrying.
Yeah.
It's all the medicines that I carry that they're drawn to. And I feel that those people who do come to me are people who are hearing a bigger calling of personal healing. You know, they're really ready to do the deep shadow work. You know, I can be the nice introduction person, but often when you're going into shadow work, you need to have done a certain amount beforehand before you can really face certain things. So I guess you could say there's different levels. People who come for one-to-ones tend to be ready to unlock certain boxes. People who come for ceremonies apprenticeship tend to be ready to really go that little bit deeper and really start releasing on a much more profound level. People who are called to the plant kingdom are people who are ready to step into a new way of being. That feels like a very grand statement. I really feel that it's because there is a massive shift that is happening and has been happening for a long time, and I feel like I'm a latecomer to the party, you know. And this shift, this call from Mother Earth to live more harmoniously with her, harmoniously with each other, harmoniously with ourselves. There is this larger way of being that is happening right now, and people are being called to that. They feel that call. And I have to say, you know, I worked with spirit guide and angels long before I ever met plant spirits. But plant spirits, the plant kingdom, really helped heal my relationship with my own feminine. And we all carry it, whether we're male or female, with my own feminine. And that in turn led me to heal my relationship with grandmother, with the divine feminine, the true principle of the feminine, which is Mother Earth. And that really is, I guess, I don't want to say the ultimate goal, but, you know, for want of better words, like that really is Mother Earth's desire, is to just live harmoniously with us.
Mm. And do you think people find it easier perhaps to build a relationship with plant spirits because they are here in the physical as well as in the spiritual? Because I know I've channeled spirit guides and things, and I don't do that as much as I'd like to, but it's like, it's all very intangible. Like I can't see them. So do you think that helps people to connect with the spirit world because plants are also here in the physical?
I don't know. I'm not sure, because I would like to think that's a reason. I think in a way plant spirit connection and healing is still relatively understood as, or it's not commercially kind of in the mainstream.
Yeah. I think people just aren't as aware of it.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm trying to say. I feel like it's people aren't that aware of it. They're much more interested in sort of maybe the bigger plant medicines, and I'm saying bigger in inverted quotes.
The famous ones.
The famous ones, exactly. And that's another reason why I'm so passionate about what I do, because some of my most profound healings have come from working with teasel or willow or mugwort. It's not been the psychoactive medicines. So I think there's some of that that's still going on. I think for me personally, I guess I can't really speak for people, but for me personally, my psychic senses were so heightened when I decided to fully embrace them, that the plants actually gave me a lot of grounding and the mental sanity I needed to have this level of intuition. Because I can touch them, because I can feel them, because they are here with me. And I don't mean to disrespect angels or spirit guides in any way, but I think that description of what I went through, exact imbalance I was speaking about earlier, about not living in harmony. I felt like almost when I made the transition from working more with plant spirits than with spirit guides, I made this transition. I really felt that actually the angels and the spirit guides had come in specifically to lead, they're coming in specifically to lead us in this direction. You know, it felt like they're having to reach down towards us to help us heal and move towards harmony. It felt like they were assisting, and this is where I should be.
Yeah. So do you sense a difference between tree spirits and plant spirits? Because I think sometimes people kind of give more weight or importance to trees because of their size, but in my experience, plant spirits can be every bit as powerful.
I agree with you 100%. Like, it really is, you know, it really is a bit of a difference. I've noticed that. And I actually, you know, without making too much of a blanket statement, I find that men tend to be drawn more towards trees and less towards plants. But I don't know if it's a size issue. But you're right. You know, there is an energetic difference.
Yes.
Like a tree is definitely feels very different to working with a plant. And I don't think for me there's ever any differentiation of that whether it's a tree or a plant, I don't really see that or acknowledge that in a way that differentiates. For me, it's what is the one that's calling me to work with it.
Yeah.
And that's how I proceed. There's definitely an energetic difference, but you're right when you say that, you know, sometimes the plant can be just as powerful. I think when I think about my most powerful experiences, you know, they've been a mixture. So I can't say one is more powerful than the other.
And of all the plant spirits that you've worked with over the years, what would you say are kind of, I don't want to say your favorites, but which ones, it's terrible. But which ones kind of stand out for you? Which ones have kind of changed your life the most?
I think that's a better way. I can't say favorites because my list gets very long. I'm like, oh, and this. So, but I think the ones I have found the most life-changing is mugwort, hands down.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely cannabis.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely very early on in my life. And I don't think I ever realized how much until now.
Mm.
And cacao.
Mm.
Oh, that was a very powerful experience that I don't want to ever relive. And the weeping willow.
Mm.
Willow. And actually, those were the first 3 ceremonies I ran, mugwort, cacao, and willow together because of that. And Tulsi.
Yes.
Tulsi's incredible for me. Really on so many levels. Yeah. There are others, but those are definitely my top 3/4.
Yeah. Mm. So when people come to you for plant spirit initiation, what does that look like? Like, what does the day look like, or the weekend, or the event?
You know, it's an interesting question because right now at the moment we're working more online, so it kind of has changed shape. But really, when we were meeting in person, it was a day of immersion. It's a day of the ceremony, in a way, was really honoring that particular plant spirit. You know, we were making a very conscious effort to connect with that particular plant spirit. There's 2 sides. There's one of where I'm running it, and then there's one where I'm attending. So when I've been attending, you know, I always found that once I'd made the decision to go, or let's say had the call to go, I found that things started happening in my life that led up to that ceremony, that were leading up. It's almost like your path gets clicked into place that synchronizes with that healing. And so certain things start coming up or start happening that in a way you don't even realize until after the ceremony, and you look back and you realize there's been this interplay. So when you arrive, it's really an immersion. So you're doing different techniques and things to connect with the plant. One of the main things we do on a more physical level is fast, lightly eat and ingest. So we're drinking maybe a little bit of an infusion of the plant and the flower essence. Occasionally we have something supportive in there, but generally it's the plant. So you're fasting and you're ingesting, maybe I like to make it 3 just because I like the number 3, but we ingest 3 times through the day. In between that, we're doing things to connect with the spirit of the plant, and really that's aimed towards understanding the medicine that particular plant spirit carries, and because they all heal different things. And then at the end of the day, we kind of come together and break our fast together, and that's really about celebration and community and hungry. You know?
Yes. And grounding too, I think. Having a solid meal could be very grounding after you've been working with the spirit world.
Yeah, exactly. And really the reason for fasting is to allow your body the most space to heal. Because if you're digesting, there's another process happening in your body that's taking up energy. So it's not about starving yourself. You know, if you need to eat lightly, you can, but it really is about food not being a distraction.
Yeah. So what do these experiences look like online? How have you kind of translated that experience to the online world?
You know, one of the biggest things that I've heard as we've been going through this sort of world change is people having more personal responsibility, particularly around their well-being and their health, but we've kind of been forced into it, you know. And so I found that that's been translated to ceremonial work in the sense that actually people are having to take more responsibility for what they do ceremonially in their own space. So when you come to the space I've created, everything is done for you. You know, you're just turning up and experiencing and going home. When you're online, you're having to set up your own space. You're having to make the space. You know, when you leave house, really easy, isn't it? When you're at home, it's kind of like you have to very consciously make that space for you to do ceremonial work. And so there's there's more of that. Also, me not being there physically, I'm still holding energetically, but it means I can't do the things I normally do, which is I'm slightly more involved in moving that energy that's a sticking point in you, or kind of maybe gently helping you look at something in a more detailed way that I can see because you're sitting there with me. Because I'm not able to do those things, it actually requires that person to do those things for themselves. So there's a lot more personal responsibility. It's still safe and it's still ceremony, but it requires the person attending to put in more work.
Yeah.
That's how I have felt it to be, is that it requires the person to be more participatory. And I really felt that because when I did the dandelion initiation last year with my teacher, it was online and I was the only one from the UK. So I was on a totally different time zone to the States. And it really involved me being more disciplined about my time and actually, in a way, allowed me to work more with my own rhythm rather than a rhythm of the group. So it's different. It's not necessarily good or bad different. It's just different.
So can you tell us a little bit about what you're offering online this year? So you've got the Plant Spirit Healing Apprenticeship. You've got some other initiations, I think. What do you have planned for 2021?
I have lots of plans in my head. I've got down on paper so far. So we have the Lunar Sister Circle, which is working with the new moon rhythm and working with certain plants that work with the feminine principle and the feminine aspects. So it's really healing the wise woman within, bringing out womb wisdom and just helping us be more grounded as women in this time. And I'm really looking forward to the last one of those, which I think is in May, where we're working with Ladies Mantle. I'm so looking forward to it. So that's one thing I've been doing, and that actually really came directly from Spirit to do that. But to be fair, they all do, but this one, I normally love to work with a full moon, but this one is the new moon. The other thing is dandelion. I'm running a dandelion ceremony on the spring equinox on the 20th of March. And dandelion has been saying this to me for months. And it's literally been going, dreaming with dandelion, spring equinox. Dreaming with dandelion, spring equinox. So I'm running Dreaming with Dandelion on the spring equinox.
You're good at listening to messages, aren't you?
It's been very insistent. And actually dandelion is an amazing plant. If we're talking about plants and trees, I mean, dandelion holds its own. It is about resilience, mental clarity, seeding your dreams. It really is something very special, very transformative in its energy, and really, really resilient. Like if you pull out a dandelion, it will grow back stronger. It's really resilient. So dandelion and spring equinox. And then I'm running the Lunar Wisdom Circle as well on the full moon. It's not every full moon, but I'm trying to bring some of my teachers forward for others, because I just feel there's so much wisdom there that I have access to. I really would love to share that with people. So I have one coming up on the 27th of February with this amazing woman called Rocio Larkin. She is a curandera from a lineage, an Ecuadorian lineage, as well as having a PhD in ethnopharmacology. She particularly teaches plant limpias. But I have found when I've attended things she's run, she is so wise. Some things that she said to me more than a year ago still feel so true for me now, and really have inspired me, I have to say. Really inspired me to work harder and be heard more. And she really is like a firecracker, to be honest. So that's coming up, and I hope to bring other teachers as we go through the year. And then the Plant Spirit Apprenticeship, which I'm really looking forward to. It's like a journey of ceremony for me, a journey through different plants, and a journey of personal healing for people who'd like to attend. It really is a journey of personal healing. And I've made a medicine wheel as well that we're going to work through. which is going to be very interesting. So those are my plans at the moment, but I'm sure I'm going to have more ceremonies as we go.
Lovely. So when does the apprenticeship start this year?
So the apprenticeship starts on the last weekend of March. It's 8 months, and we have a break in July and August after we work with Tulsi, and it's just a needed break, you know, people to integrate. And then before we start to go deeper in the last 3 months, we go quite deep with ancestral healing and earth connection and personal work. I don't know, I feel like you could share more about this, experience.
It was absolutely life-changing, and I miss it so much. It was such a lovely group. It was just so much healing, as you've said, deep healing at a personal level, while at the same time learning skills that I can use throughout my life, like learning how to journey with my drum, learning how to, work with my power animal, learning how to connect with the plant spirits. I've had all these plants kind of in my mind for the last few months that I want to kind of reach out to and start working with. Obviously not all at the same time, but one by one. And I can do that thanks to having done this apprenticeship, because I know all the different ways that I can connect with them and work with them and build that relationship. So, yeah.
And I think there's something that I've said that I just wanted to touch on again is, we spoke about having tea tasting where you're doing a meet and greet. And I've this expression, when the medicine lives inside of you, when you carry the medicine a few times. And the plant spirit apprenticeship really teaches you what that means. When you have completely and fully integrated yourself with a plant spirit, you literally carry that energy with you wherever you go. And that healing, when you're talking about, often I will work with a plant to that level, and people in my life who are close to me will receive the healing because I'm actually carrying it.
Yeah.
To do that, that I think is one of the main things that I wanted to give people through the apprenticeship, was learning how to do that.
And I think that's something, until you learn about that, I think a lot of people don't even know that that's possible for them.
Yeah.
So I think even just the knowledge that you can do this and then learning how to carry that medicine it's huge.
Yeah. It really is. And everyone's medicine is different, which makes it so much more interesting.
And as you've said, each plant heals different things. But do you think that perhaps some plants kind of come forward to certain people with some things and other people with other things? Or is it just, how does that work?
I think there's actually different schools of thought. Some people, some traditions, they feel like it's always one thing. Some feel like it's dependent on your relationship with that plant spirit or that tree spirit. I find there's different nuances. So I feel like there is, firstly, none of them do one thing. They all do a few things.
Yeah.
So it's like maybe one of those things is more pronounced to me than it is to someone else. And that is usually a result of what is your personal medicine. Because if I work with, let's say I work with white pine for ancestral healing, but it's specific to divine masculine ancestral healing, let's say for me, then when I work with other people, that is, because that's been my personal medicine, that becomes my medicine for others. Whereas for somebody else, it might be root chakra ancestral healing. They have a different emphasis, and then that's their medicine for others. So everybody, what they do is valid, but it's really about understanding what's your personal medicine. And actually the main majority of the apprenticeship is about your own personal healing, because until you've received that medicine in completion, you cannot carry the plant spirit in completion.
And how do you know when you've received that medicine in completion?
Oh, there's no words for how you know. It's a profound knowing,
So for people who are curious about this and want to learn more, perhaps sign up for one of your offerings, where can people find you online?
Best place is either Instagram, Suneet Divine Souls, or my website, divinesouls.co.uk. Those are the best two places, and if you want to be kept up to date, just sign up to the newsletter. They don't come that frequently, but literally the best place for, any upcoming events. And if you just want to learn more and you're just interested, Instagram's the best place as well for that.
Excellent. Thank you so much for joining us today and talking about plant spirits, one of my favorite things.
Holly, you're just magic to me, everything that you've done and everything that you do. And I just think you're amazing. So just so much gratitude to you for having this space and all the messages you put out for the plant kingdom. It's really just touches my heart. So thank you.
Oh, thank you. Since you're my teacher, that means a lot to me. Yeah, I'm going to cry now. Let's end this on a positive note. Thank you again. Thank you for everything. Thank you for the work that you do. Thank you for joining us today. And please, if you're listening to this and you're even the slightest bit curious, please check Suneet out and sign up for something. You will not be disappointed. Please drop me a line and let me know what you thought about this week's episode. You can email me at holly@hollywharton.com or find me online and get in touch there. Next week's episode is probably going to be a solo episode. I have a topic in mind and I'm very much looking forward to sharing it with you. We're going to be back to outdoors adventures next week. So remember to visit hollywharton.com/394 for the show notes on this episode. And if you have any questions about Suneet's Plant Spirit Healing Apprenticeship and you'd like to hear from someone who's been through the course, feel free to get in touch with me about that. Send me an email, find me online. It was a truly life-changing experience for me, and I would love to help you decide if that's the right decision for you. So thank you very much and have a great week. Thanks so much for listening to Into the Woods with Holly Wharton. You can find more information about today's episode, including links for topics that were discussed, at hollywharton.com. That's HOLLYWORTON.com. If you'd like to connect with other listeners and get support on your journey, I would love for you to join my private community on Patreon. That's patreon.com/Holly Wharton. That's patreon.com/Holly Wharton. Thank you so much for listening, and I look forward to seeing you next week.